Good evening. Tonight we look at two unfolding crises that test diplomacy in very different ways. In the region, Egypt reinforces its role as a stabilizing anchor as Sudan faces one of the gravest moments in its modern history. Across the Atlantic, Washington's pressure campaign on Venezuela is entering a far more dangerous phase, raising legal, economic, and military alarms well beyond Latin America. I'm Mona Mosalhi, and this is In Focus. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's meeting in Cairo with Sudan's Transitional Sovereign Council President General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan comes at a critical moment for Sudan and for regional security. The talks reaffirmed Egypt's full support for Sudan's unity, sovereignty, and stability while underscoring Cairo's readiness to contribute to ending the conflict and easing the humanitarian catastrophe facing Sudanese civilians. Both leaders stressed the urgency of stopping crimes against civilians and ensuring accountability alongside expanding humanitarian assistance. Beyond the war itself, the meeting highlighted deeper strategic alignment. Egypt and Sudan reiterated their shared position on Nile water security, rejecting unilateral measures in the Blue Nile Basin and stressing respect for international law and coordinated regional action. At a time of mounting instability in the Horn of Africa, the message was clear. Sudan's crisis is not isolated. It is central to broader regional balance. We're joined by Mr. Makki Al-Mughrabi, International Relations Analyst. Good evening to you, sir. And let me start by asking, how significant is Egypt's reaffirmation of its support for Sudan at this stage of the conflict?
Thank you, Mona, and thank you for Qnews for this interview. Actually, the Egyptian stand started early at the first date of the war when Egypt pushed for the meeting or the summit or the conference for the neighboring countries of Sudan. And this summit now is not just a routine meeting. It's a decisive summit. And the statement that came out of this summit is not just a statement. It's actually almost a program of action. The words have been articulated in a very clear way. The word or the term red lines was clear and explicit. Even when mentioning the quartet, it has been connected with the full coordination with the institutions and of the governments of Sudan, so that all things should connect it with the legal government and the state of Sudan. Actually, also one of the wonderful things that mentioned in the statement, the explicit reference to the joint defense agreement between Egypt and Sudan. That was in early 1970s, and according to my point of view, it is still valid because that agreement ratified by the parliament in the 1970s, and when something happened in the 1980s, that was a decision from the executive. And all we know in the constitutional law, a thing that ratified by the parliament cannot be repealed by the executive or the office of the prime minister. So that the joint defense agreement between Sudan and Egypt is still valid, and we need to activate it. And all people and all the observers from the Sudanese side, they read the statement and they followed the summit, and all of them, they said that this summit is totally different and the outcomes is totally different from all things happened before.
With regard to the historical relations between Egypt and Sudan, is, from your point of view, Cairo positioning itself primarily as a mediator or as a guarantor of regional stability?
I think all we know now, the target or the ultimate goal with this war is not Sudan. The war is targeting Egypt as same as it's targeting Sudan. Now we are in multipolar world, and all thing now is clear. The war in Sudan, the war in Yemen, the war in Somalia, the same actors that they want to divide Somalia, they want to divide Yemen, they want to divide Sudan and to cut it into pieces. And the Egyptian position was very clear on that from day one. No way to divide Sudan or to lead the war for establishing new countries and to divide Sudan into pieces. And that will be a hub for terrorism, a hub for other enemies that they want to attack both countries, Sudan or Egypt or other countries in the region. So the position of Egypt was clear and now became clearer.
Mm-hmm. When we speak about Sudan and we speak about the Sudan crisis, now, how does the Sudan war intersect with broader security concerns in the Horn of Africa?
Yeah, we have what we call it the Coup Belt or the Savannah Belt, or now it's named the Mercenary Belt across the Sahel region. Now you have the terrorism that spread out in this region. And we know that there are some actors that they are doing that to justify their intervention in the region. So the war in Sudan can add more problems to what is happening in the Sahel region. So to stop the war in Sudan, to enhance the army, the Sudanese armed forces and other regular forces in Sudan, and to maintain the stability in Sudan that will protect the region. We know that there is terrorism in the Sahel region and the west of Africa, and terrorism in the east of Africa. And Sudan was the barrier. The state of Sudan, when it was stable and strong, was the barrier between the two wings of terrorism here and there. But if we witness a collapse in Sudan, that means the belt of terrorism will start from West Africa to East Africa.
Mm-hmm. From your point of view, what role can Egypt realistically play in alleviating Sudan's humanitarian crisis?
The question of humanitarian crisis is very important, by the way, because we in Sudan, we think that the world needs to listen to our voice. You cannot bring actors that they are doing evil things in Sudan and to polish them as actors that can play a positive role in a humanitarian situation. You have a proverb in Egypt, the eagle doesn't throw away chicks. So the actors that they pour weapons and mercenaries into Sudan, they cannot help Sudan. Egypt shouldered the responsibility of the Sudanese refugees from day one, and Sudanese displaced people, opened its borders, opened its areas, and the Sudanese were welcomed in Egypt, and the major Sudanese community after the war was in Egypt. So if we have country like Egypt, that they shoulder the responsibility, the humanitarian burden with Sudan, other countries also, I want to mention Saudi Arabia, Eritrea, and also among the European countries, France. Some other countries, they were playing a negative role in the war of Sudan. They supported the militia with weapons. According to the public opinion in Sudan, these countries cannot play a positive role in the humanitarian situation in Sudan because they are still part of the humanitarian crisis in Sudan.
So you're speaking here about Egypt as the face or the mediator who can reflect really the suffering of the Sudanese people to the international community. Now, if we take this matter from another angle, or if we discuss this matter from another angle, how central is Nile water security to the strategic alignment between Cairo and Khartoum?
The Nile water, the Red Sea, we know that there is a dispute between Sudan and Egypt from a side and Ethiopia from another side, and that what called the Eastern Basin of the Nile. We need to
the downstream,
definitely
the downstream of the Nile
downstream
Basin,
Sudan
yes.
and Egypt,
yes,
and the upstream Ethiopia and
yes.
others. But Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia together, they are the eastern side of the Nile Basin, and they have the inter-organization. So in this case, we need more collaboration between these countries. But always, Ethiopia is hiding information from Sudan and Egypt. Even for us in Sudan, there was a big problem during the floods. Sudanese people, they just expect something to happen, but they don't know exactly. And even the agreements of exchanging information and having joint management for the situation, all this agreement collapsed because that Ethiopia is keeping itself in a distance away from Egypt and Sudan. It is not just the Nile Basin dispute. Now the militia has existence in Ethiopian lands. And we cannot forget that one day the Ethiopia has received and welcomed the leader of the militia while he was killing Sudanese people. They welcomed him in a presidential reception in Addis Ababa. And they hosted the agreement between the militia and other parties and political actors that they are supporting the militia. But let us say that after that, Abiy Ahmed came to Port Sudan and met with Burhan, and we expected that he will continue in positive steps in the relation with Sudan. But now we have threats on the eastern border of Sudan along the borders with Ethiopia.
We speak about regional and international efforts. How do you view the regional and international efforts? Are they converging or still fragmented in facing the Sudanese crisis?
The dangerous thing that the public opinion in Sudan now, they don't believe at all in what's so-called international committee. And that is, by the way, is very dangerous thing, because that will block the new generation from receiving any positive messages from any other countries that they didn't play a positive role in Sudan. Now the countries that Sudanese people, they feel that they are supporting them really, and they didn't maintain a neutral position. They can count them from 1 to 10 countries among the world. But now the number is increasing, luckily. Still, we need more seriousness from the United Nations, because they issued a resolution they refusing the siege around the Fashir for 2 years, but nothing happened. And then the massacre of the Fashir, nothing happened. And before that, the massacre of Jenaina, nothing happened. The humanitarian situation or the humanitarian crisis is one of the worst in the history. I heard one of the Sudanese ladies from Fashir. She walked from Fashir to Dabba city, which is 8 hours or more. And she said that they killed her baby and cut it into pieces in front of her eyes. So this is the massacres in the Fashir city. And the Janjaweed or the militia people, they documented the crimes that they made. And they are proud of that. They went on cameras, in videos, and they said that we did that. And one of them, he said that we killed 1,000, and he was proud of that. So after that, some people just try to be neutral and say both sides. What about both sides? This word, when you say to Sudanese people, they don't trust you anymore. No way to say both sides. They are criminals, they are Janjaweed, they are terrorists. Even Mark Rubio, the Secretary of the State in the United States, he said that the militia said that they want to start the ceasefire, but they didn't, and they cannot do it because the nature of the militia is just killing, and now the militia joined by mercenaries. They get paid from killing people.
Right, right. Fortunately, I have to go to the other segment, but thank you so much, Mr. Al-Mughrabi, for your insights and for from diplomacy aimed at preventing state collapse. So we turn to a confrontation where pressure is being applied through force and where the line between coercion and war is becoming increasingly blurred. President Donald Trump's announcement of a total and complete blockade on Venezuelan oil tankers marks a sharp escalation in Washington's pressure campaign against Caracas. What began as sanctions and interdictions has now evolved into a strategy that many legal experts describe as indistinguishable from an act of war. The U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean, including warship, aircraft, and thousands of troops, is now openly linked to choking off Venezuela's oil exports, the backbone of its economy. While the administration frames the move as part of a campaign against drug trafficking and narco-terrorism, critics argue that the true objective is regime change and control over energy resources. The implications extend from beyond Venezuela. Oil markets have already reacted. International law experts are warning of precedent-setting violations, and members of the U.S. Congress are questioning whether the White House is bypassing constitutional limits on war-making powers. As pressures intensifies, the risk of miscalculation and wider regional instability is rising. And we're joined here by Ms. Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst. Good evening to you. And let me start from asking from a legal standpoint, does a naval blockade constitute an act of war under the international
law? Hello, Mona. Thank you for having me today, and greetings to your viewers. And yes, a blockade is an act of aggression under international law. A blockade severs a country from imported goods, from energy, and most importantly, it also blocks that country from export and from earning money. So a blockade is a form of economic warfare, which is indeed warfare. And we do see that America has relied on sanctions and tariffs and other economic punitive measures in order to get other countries to comply with our demands. However, at this point, it's very unclear exactly what President Trump hopes to accomplish. If it was about the oil, we know that we can enter into business agreements with Maduro. He has expressed a willingness to negotiate with the United States. If this is about regime change, it's unclear how America could enact regime change by merely a blockade, because this will only serve to anger the Venezuelan people, and indeed this could wind up hurting American consumers. It could drive up our gasoline prices at a time when President Trump is touting that he is bringing gasoline prices down. And indeed, when we saw President Trump's speech last night, many Americans expected that he would declare war on Venezuela, but instead what we got was Trump somewhat defensive, somewhat angry, pushing the affordability narrative, pushing that prices have come down. He spent a lot of time blaming the former Biden administration for many of our economic woes today. But he did not mention Venezuela. And what we are seeing is we have, as Trump said, the largest armada in history arrayed off the coast of Venezuela, but we do not seem to have a clear plan forward whether Trump expects to engage in airstrikes. Trump has said that we are going to go in by land. He keeps suggesting we're going to have a ground invasion. However, Venezuela is 5 times the size of Vietnam. It's 3 times larger than Iraq. If American troops go into Venezuela, our military analysts predict that this could be a catastrophe. So it's unclear to the American people what we hope to accomplish with this blockade. What is our end game? Because if we only hurt the everyday common Venezuelan people, then this will turn Venezuelans against Americans at a time when we are trying to court their resistance and get their resistance onto our side, and also at a time when this could trigger a wave of Venezuelan refugees up into America at a time where Donald Trump is struggling with our own immigration problems. And then once again, there's the larger geopolitical strategy where after we did see that Iran stopped a boat, an oil tanker flagged by America in the Straits of Hormuz, and it appears on a larger, grander scale if President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are trying to open up Venezuela's oil to America in order to preempt economic damage should Israel strike Iran, should Iran close the Straits of Hormuz, then America will be able to go to Venezuelan oil instead of being subject to a blockade,
Right.
a maritime blockade in the Straits of Hormuz, which would hurt the rest of the world.
Definitely, definitely. But you gathered the two topics together and merged them together from Iran to Venezuela. But if we look into the Venezuelan issue, now how vulnerable is the Trump administration to domestic legal challenges over these actions?
Trump is very vulnerable. The majority of the American people do not approve of what he's doing in Venezuela. We see this could lead to a larger, expensive catastrophe. So we do have Congress, members of Congress, several of them, most notably congressmen from Texas, but also Massachusetts, have tried introducing resolutions under the War Powers Act of 1973 to stop President Trump from bombing Venezuela. So far, we've had 2 or 3 resolutions introduced, and they have been unsuccessful. They've been voted along party lines. It seems the majority of the Republicans are supporting Trump. The majority of Democrats wish to block Trump. So this is creating a deeper divide between the Democrats and the Republicans. However, it remains to be seen how the Republicans overall are going to resist Trump on this. We know there's a small contingent of Republican resistance. However, right now it seems that Congress is itself in a chaotic disarray. They are trying to deal with many issues that Trump has brought up, from the military bases in Syria, our war in the Middle East, China, Taiwan, special forces in Mexico. So it appears our Congress has their hands full, and they are trying right now to introduce resolutions to block Trump's military activity in Venezuela. However, these are being voted down by very narrow margins along party lines. However, if Venezuela does get messier, the issue with the boats is becoming a much bigger issue than Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth anticipated. There are now hearings. Pete Hegseth is on the hot seat. And most notably, in a recent bill, Congress voted down the name change from Department of War to Department of
Yes.
Defense. So we are still the Department of Defense, even though Trump and Hegseth insist on saying Department of War. However, these boat strikes on these small boats off the coast of Venezuela are going to be a very big legal issue for Trump, for Hegseth, admirals, and for the military when Congress gets members of the military on the hot seat in congressional hearings.
If I may ask you here, Ms. Chapman, seriously, is the blockade about counter-narcotics or explicitly about regime change?
Well, this is another thing that is angering the American people, because it does not appear that Trump is being transparent and straightforward and honest with the American people, or else he has no idea what he's doing and he's making it up as he goes along. Both of those are very bad prospects for the American people. Trump is telling us this is about narco-terrorism. However, we do know, even from our own DEA Department of our Drug Enforcement Agency has stated on their website, most of our drugs, the fentanyl, is coming through Mexico. If any drugs are being transited to Venezuela, they are not destined for America. They tend to be going to the coast of Africa. So this narco-terrorism is a ploy on, first, it appeared to be a tactic to get around the need for congressional approval, to get around asking Congress for a declaration of war. So using narco-terrorism is in contravention of Congress's jurisdiction over war, and it appears that by using terrorism, Trump is also able to get around the rules of engagement in war. For example, in a military conflict, if we cannot attack civilians, even if they are drug dealers, civilians are off limits. If people are surrendering, they are off limits. If they are shipwrecked, if their ship is disabled, which is crucial here, shipwrecked mariners are not in combat. They are supposed to be rescued and taken as prisoners of war, not killed.
Right.
So
let me hear.
Even though Trump is,
let me hear go because this is a very important questions that we will be speaking about, and I out of time, or my time is running up. What risks does this pose for regional stability in Latin America, and could this strategy backfire economically on the energy, on the global energy?
Yes, the risks to Latin America are great. We could destabilize all of these other countries. Colombia, especially, they're dealing with FARC, their own rebels. They could move into Venezuela. We see other countries that would like to go to Venezuela to fight Yankee soldiers. On the other hand, if Maduro is seen as weak and this creates a power vacuum, then we have the Colombian rebels move in. Maria Machado, the Nobel Prize winner, will not be able to maintain civil rest, civil order on her own. America would not be able to send in the soldiers required to keep Venezuela under a regime change guard. And then for America, this runs the risk of increased energy prices. This runs the risk of American resources being diverted into a quagmire, great loss of life and treasure and money in Venezuela to no end game, no strategy. And this also runs the risk of upsetting Trump's domestic programs, his domestic policies for our economy. And
especially
also,
that we're speaking
again,
that, especially that we're speaking that Venezuela is an OPEC member.
Yes, Venezuela has large oil reserves. They are a member of OPEC. We know that our naval fleet did turn back a Russian oil tanker that was entering the Caribbean. So this could bump us up against Russia in ways we do not want right now. We do not want a maritime conflict with Russia over oil tankers going to Venezuela, while we're also trying to negotiate peace in Ukraine And then the larger geopolitical, we hear rumors of the Isaac Accords with Argentina, with Brazil. So it appears there's a larger geopolitical strategy. We do not know what Prime Minister Netanyahu has in mind, but this is a very risky endeavor right now with no end game, no strategy.
Right, Ms. Chapman, we thank you so much for your insights here. And from Cairo's diplomacy to Washington's escalation, tonight's stories underscore a widening gap in global crisis management between dialogue aimed at stability and pressure that risks pushing regions towards open conflict. That's all for In Focus today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more on Qnews.